Hello, how's everyone doing today? I'm here with my special guest, who is often referred to as a pale carbon copy of Murray Rothbard, Walter Block. He is the author of such books as Defending the Undefendable 1 and 2. He's going to do a book on evictionism called Birthing the Unbirthable. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Always good to be back with you, and I take it as a high compliment. Anytime I'm mentioned in the same sentence with Murray Rothbard, no matter what the sentence says, I'm delighted because Murray is my man. He's my guru, my friend, my mentor. I love Murray, and I try to act in a way that will make him proud of me.
All right. Well, let's. There's a bunch of interesting topics I want to talk about, but the one thing I want to talk about, somewhat related, since we're mentioning Murray Rothbard, is I think if you look empirically, it seems to me the government is evil, as we both agree, and I don't really believe that.
I'll stipulate that.
And I don't really believe that you can achieve liberty through the state. Meaning, you can't join the mafia and reform the mafia. So why do you think you can't join ISIS and turn it good? So I think voting for the lesser of two evils, or let's get libertarians in politics. I think this is all just a giant waste of time. And what often happens is when libertarians try to make allies with the right or the left, and what ends up happening is that they become more right and more left and lose the libertarian cred in an attempt to appeal to people. So I guess let's start with that. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you're making a not unreasonable point. This is a danger when you ally with, I don't know, the Second Amendment people on the right. Instead of turning them into libertarians, you're turning yourself into a conservative. It's possible. It happens. On the other hand, when you ally yourself with NORML, National Organization for the Repeal of Marijuana Laws, a lefty group, you might turn left. It's always a danger. But, there's, on the upside, we can maybe convert a few of them to our banner. And it's an empirical question, which way the conversions go. I would venture to say it probably goes in our direction. But, look, that would be a good PhD dissertation for somebody to empirical analysis of this and see what happens. It's an empirical issue. We can't say praxeologically, armchair, well, this is the way it is. All we can do is take the worst case scenario and say, well, we lose more to them than we gain from them.
Right.
We therefore not do it. Well, that would be an argument for not doing it. An argument for doing it would be, well, at least we promote something good, namely gun freedom and marijuana freedom. So these are very ticklish empirical issues as to whether it would be in the interest of liberty to do this or not.
Right. But sorry, go ahead.
With regard to the state, I agree with you entirely. You can't convert the mafia. You can't convert ISIS, and every government is ISIS-ish and mafia-ish. Some more so than others. I mean, obviously, there's some very, very bad states, and the government of Monaco is not that bad, and the government of Hong Kong was not that bad when they were control, and Liechtenstein and Switzerland is not that bad. They're way worse than that. But still, they're government, and therefore they depend upon the violation of the non-aggression principle. They tax people and prevent competition. So therefore, we shouldn't try to get office. Well, I don't think that follows logically, because there are more reasons to ally oneself with the state, if you want to put it in a very negative way, or to run for office, and that is to get publicity. Look, when I started in the libertarian movement in 1965, I asked Murray, how many libertarians were there in the world? And he said 25. Well, we've come a long way, baby, since then. Part of it is due to Ron Paul. And what did Ron Paul do? He ran for office, and he succeeded in getting into office. Now, Ron Paul is an anomaly. I mean, he's a miracle. He's magnificent. But the average guy who runs for the Libertarian Party, for the Dog Catcher Award, or for the mayor of Duckville, which has 300 people. And, there are debates, and the Democrat and the Republican and the Libertarian are debating over who's going to be the mayor of Duckburg. Well, the people in Duckburg now hear liberty. They now hear the concept for the first time in their lives. And this can't be all bad. And then the LP gets 2 or 3%, and it's reported in the newspapers. Although I remember one time Ron Paul was running for office, and he came in second in some sort of primary, and they announced who came in fifth, fourth, third, and first. They didn't announce who came in second, and that was Ron. So, the powers that be are not really open to libertarianism, but there's more than one reason to run for political office. One reason might be to reform the state, and I agree with you that that's not a really good way to go. But there are other reasons. The main one is publicity, and we get a lot of publicity when we run, and I think that's all to the good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I would say even that, so Len, I would say, that might be, but Len, you have Rothbard said, he endorsed LBJ over Barry Goldwater. Well, none of those are libertarians, so why not? Or you're a libertarian for Trump over Clinton. None of those are libertarians. So at least you can say, fine, we'll have some libertarians in office and we'll try to get them to bring people to liberty. But if neither candidate is a libertarian, why play this game of the lesser of the two evils? Why not just say you're both evil and I'm not going to endorse any candidate who's evil?
Well, the example I use to counter that argument, and I think it has intellectual power, is the following. We're all slaves. We're on the plantation, and there are two overseers, Overseer Goody and Overseer Batty. Overseer Batty beats the crap out of us every hour on the hour. Overseer Goody beats the crap out of us every month, once a month. And now the master allows the slaves to vote. Which overseer do we want? We want Overseer Goody, for God's sakes. Not because we'll be free, but because we don't like having the crap beat out of us. And Overseer Goody, he really lays into us just as bad as Overseer Batty, but he only does it once a month. Well, I'd rather be beaten once a month than, once an hour or once a day or whatever it is. So, yes, I supported Trump over Hillary because I thought Trump was the lesser of two evils. We'd have more freedom with him. I thought he was slightly more peaceful in foreign policy than Hillary. I thought Hillary was a warmonger. And you never know what Hillary would have done had she become president. So this is a sort of a contrary to fact conditional. But I have no regrets or apologies for supporting, not only voting for Trump, but supporting him. I, along with colleagues of mine, started two groups. One was Libertarians for Trump, and we got maybe 5,000 signatures, and the other was Scholars for Trump. And the reason we wanted to do that, the bad guys were saying, well, the only people that like Trump are rednecks and people in flyover country that are morons. And I wanted to get people with PhDs who supported him. We got about 150 people signed up. Now, I don't know. I don't say that this pushed Trump over the top and got him elected, but I'm just one person, and you do what you can, because I think Hillary would have been a disaster, and Trump a disaster too, but of lesser proportions. And also, he does have he ran as a peace candidate practically. If there were any justice, they would have given him the Nobel Prize in Peace after about a week or so in office, like they did for Obama. They didn't, but that's a whole different issue. Now, it's true he's been overrun by various people, his advisors, who are very warmongerish. But I have to think that, he's trying to make nice with Putin, for God's sakes. And Hillary hated Putin. I mean, we might have been in a thermonuclear war with Russia with Hillary in there. That would have been my fear. And Donald is trying to make nice with Putin, which I think is, very sensible. We don't need to, have a war with Russia, for God's sakes. And you got all these Democrats who used to be sort of in favor of peace, and now they hate Trump for whatever Trump does, even if Trump does what they would have done anyway. For example, they are protectionists, the Democratic Party, and now Trump is going protectionist, and they hate Trump because anything he does, they're against. So I think that it was a reasonable move on the part of a libertarian, me, to support Donald vis-a-vis Hillary, because I think she was the worst she was Overseer Batty.
All right. So a few replies. First of all, talking about the Nobel, I have a friend who is an Austrian. I mean, he self-studies, but his degree is in computer science, but he's read a lot about economics, and he was criticizing Paul Krugman one day. And some guy says, you think you know more about economics than a guy who won the Nobel Prize in economics? And my friend replied, not only do I think I know more about economics than a guy who won the Nobel Prize in economics, I've murdered fewer people than the guy who won the Nobel Prize for Peace.
Ah, yes. Well, there are people. Obama. I don't know. I don't know if I
Right.
can say
But
Obama.
the problem with overseer goody or baddie is, it implies that you know who the lesser of two evils is. Because everyone who votes pretty much says, like, I don't know anyone who votes who says, who are you voting for? I'm voting for the greater of two evils. Like, everyone thinks they're voting for the lesser of two evils. So, but how do you know you're voting for the lesser of two evils and not the better of two liars?
Well,
right?
You don't know for sure, but if you apply that logic, we have to stay in bed, and even that might be a mistake because maybe we should get out of bed. I mean, I think that's too harsh a criteria because none of us are omniscient. We all struggle. We live in a veil of ignorance. We just have to do the best we can.
Yeah, but people are going to say whatever they want to get elected. So why should we? How do we? And since we know they're pathological liars, how do we? We can't take what they say seriously.
Well, then we should go the opposite way. Given that all politicians are liars, how do you know when they're lying? They move their lips. Well, then you should vote for the better of them. You got it?
Well, I tell people that I vote for the greater of two evils because we've been voting for the lesser of two evils, and look what shape we're in. Maybe if we vote for the greater of two evils,
okay. Well, if you assume that our knowledge is the opposite of the truth, then we should vote for the greater of two evils. But I don't think that that's sensible. I think the reason Murray voted for LBJ over Goldwater is he thought Goldwater was a bigger warmonger. Now, he might have been mistaken. Look, Murray is a human being. He can make mistakes. But that was his reasoning. And I think, I'm an economist, so I think economics is important. And I'm a libertarian. I think personal liberties are important. But I think war and peace and foreign policy is more important than both of those put together because they pretty much determine what we do in economics and in personal liberties as well. So for me, foreign policy is very important. And Donald kept saying, look at what we did in Syria. It was a mistake. Look at what we did in Libya. It was a mistake. We're not going to do it on my watch. And look at what we did here, namely bombs and all sorts of stuff. He was pretty good. Now, if you say that they exactly lie and the person who talks peace is really the bigger warmonger, well, then I should have had libertarians for Hillary. I would have choked, but I could have done that. But I don't believe that everything I know is the exact opposite of the truth. I guess I have some chutzpah here, and I think that maybe I'm certainly not omniscient, but I think when I think something is true, it's probably a little bit more likely to be true than to be false.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've written an article about this, but I think, I don't know if you've ever read Calvin and Hobbes, but there's a scene where a bully is picking on Calvin, and Calvin goes to the bully and says, why do you pick on someone your own size? And the bully says, because they fight back. I think when you vote for the lesser of two evils, what you're signaling to the candidates is, as long as you're just better than the other guy, that's enough for me to endorse you. And so the quality of the candidates will get worse and worse over time, right? It's like being in an abusive relationship. If I give in to your abuse, you're just going to be more abusive to me because you've shown me, you've told me that abusive behavior works, right? If I give in to the bully, I can expect further demands because I'm rewarding bullying behavior.
Well, these are empirical judgments, and it's not praxeology. I can't say you're wrong, and I don't think you can say I'm wrong. I wanted to bring up one more thing, and that is Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson also ran when Donald and Hillary were running. And you might say, well, I'm a libertarian. Why didn't I support the Libertarian Party candidate? And I did. What I said, and I've written about this, so it's on the record. What I said is, look, in a blue state where Hillary is going to win easily, like California, vote for Gary Johnson. And in a red state like Louisiana, where, and by the way, the red and the blue should be inverted. I mean, red should be for the commie, the Democrat. Keep that to the side. In Louisiana, where Donald is going to win by 30 points, vote for Gary because Donald doesn't need your vote. However, in a purple state where it's going to be close, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, there are various purple states, then vote for Donald, and there are only 5 or 6 close states. So, that way we libertarians can have our cake and eat it. We can support Gary in most the libertarian candidate in most states, and in the few states where Donald might really need our vote to beat Hillary, well, then we give Donald the vote and we don't vote for Gary. So I'm sort of straddling two horses that are riding. I got one foot on one horse and one on the other, and hopefully they don't diverge too much. So that was my strategy. And that way we libertarians can have our cake and eat it, or get as close as we can to that. Namely, we support the libertarian candidate in 40, 45 states. And in 5 or 8 states, we support Donald vis-a-vis Hillary. And too bad on Gary, because Gary, another empirical judgment, Gary was not going to win. Look, if Gary was polling 33% and the others were all polling 33%, I wouldn't have supported Donald. I would have supported Gary Johnson.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're going to vote, you should vote for the person who's going to lose. That way you can say, well, at least, when he does horrible things, I didn't have anything to do with it. But yeah. So I guess I want your opinion. I guess there's a little, maybe we're veering off topic a little, on, Alex Jones, who I obviously don't like, but being a big free speech advocate. What do you think about YouTube and Facebook and all these other sites who at least pretend that they favor freedom of expression to ban it? Obviously, as a private company, they have the right to do so. But what's your view on that?
We've come a long way from the free speech movement in Berkeley, or the filthy speech movement, where the lefties were supposedly in favor of free speech. John Stuart Mill was in favor of free speech. We've come a long way from that. My analysis is the following. Part of the power of Facebook and Tweet and all those others is due to the state, due to the government, due to patents. A small part of their power is due to patents. And since I oppose intellectual property, we should only have property rights in scarce things, and ideas are not scarce. We should take away all patent protection and all government protection for these guys. Then we shouldn't do anything else. The government shouldn't do anything else, and namely it should stop protecting them. And then what I hope and what I expect is that other platforms will come into being and will announce, and they say, look, we're open to everybody. We're open to Nazis, we're open to pedophiles, we're open to weirdos, we're open to Democrats, we're open to Republicans, we're open to Alex Jones, we're open to whoever, we're open to Obama if he wants to speak. Now, the problem is that there are right now about 100 such platforms. And what we need is to coalesce around one of them, or get all 100 of them and say, look, you 100, I forget what it is in economics. We have this thing, maybe you can help me with that, where you have a problem. Like if you and I have a telephone company, we can only speak to each other.
Right.
It's not going to be too helpful. What we want is a telephone company where we can speak to everyone in the whole world. So you have a problem like that. And my hope is that these 100 platforms will get together and say, look, let's amalgamate into one. We call it the free speech platform. We accept anyone. And we'll each have one 1/100th or 1% of the company, and we'll all amalgamate, and we'll have a competitor to Facebook and to Twitter and all these other people that are getting rid of Alex Jones. And not only Alex Jones, who's a little, I don't know, extreme, but even Ron Paul's assistant, and you get libertarians, actual libertarians. Alex Jones, I think he's great. He's a little extreme, a little weird. I support him. I like listening to him. If he ever invited me on a show, I'd be delighted to be on a show. Even now that he's in bad with these bad guys. But my hope is that we'll have competition. These guys don't have a monopoly. As long as we have free entry, that's the Austrian view of free competition. I shouldn't say free entry, but legal entry. As long as we have legal entry, we have competition. And Zuckerberg is going to regret what he did, because he's going to lose millions and maybe tens of millions and maybe billions of dollars when we get a competitor. And the conservatives and libertarians and Alex Jones fans and everybody else who is kicked off the web will subscribe to it.
Right. Pedophiles are us. Maybe we shouldn't call it that. But
I'm glad you're getting your PhD in economics and not marketing.
Yeah, me too. I think the problem is that the excuse is, fake news, fake news, fake. And fake news isn't a problem, right? Bullshit isn't a problem. The problem is believing everything you hear. It's not. There's always going to be fake news, and once you ban things over, well, it's not real content, then who decides what's real? And so this is very problematic.
Well, for the left, you're not supposed to have hatred. We don't want hate speech, but what do they mean by hate speech? Anything they disagree with is hateful. Hateful. So if I say the minimum wage law creates unemployment for unskilled workers, I'm a white supremacist and I should be kicked off because that's hateful. Because we know that the minimum wage law is really great and it'll help everybody and it'll raise wages. So the way they define hate is anything they disagree with practically.
Yes, it's a problem. I remember I was talking to someone who said that he wants to live in a world where you can't offend anyone, that you say things and that you shouldn't be able to offend anyone. And I said to him, well, I get offended if I can't offend people. So should my right be ignored? The thing is, and there's a book coming out by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff soon called The Coddling of the American Mind, criticizing speech codes and trigger warnings. But basically, people have this view that if you hear certain words, bad things will happen to you. And so we have to shut people up because bad things will happen to you. But they're just words. If someone makes an offensive joke, you won't die. You won't get a disease. If someone has a certain idea that you don't like, nothing bad will happen. But instead, we will reward this by, oh, it's okay. It's okay. We'll stop the people from, and then, as George Carlin said, you have an immune system and you need germs to practice on. People need to hear bad things. Otherwise, I think they become weak.
Absolutely. In my book, Defending the Undefendable, which you were kind enough to mention, I think on the front cover it said something to offend everyone. I can't talk now. I'll call you back. I wanted to say something about free speech, and that is that I'm not an absolutist on free speech. There is one kind of speech that I think should be illegal, and you should go to jail for mentioning it, and that is threats. Because the libertarian view of non-aggression, the non-aggression principle, is not only the initiation of force, but the threat thereof is also illegitimate. So if I say seriously, if you don't give me money, I'm going to shoot you, Daniel. If I said it seriously, and obviously I'm not meaning it seriously with you, or if I'm in a play and I'm an actor and I have to say it, then I'm going to shoot you, a threat. Apart from that, if it was a real threat, that should be prescribed. That would be illegal, and people who say things like that, who make threats seriously, are criminals and should be put in jail. So I think libertarians are not full free speech absolutists. We're moderates here. We say everything except a threat is legitimate. You can say disgusting things. You can say up is down and 2 + 2 is 5, and blacks are better than whites, or whites are better than blacks, or you say anything you want. And if some people think it's hateful, too bad. Grin and bear it, or go somewhere else, or whatever. And they shouldn't do it on your private property. In other words, if you come to my house tonight and start reading Shakespeare at 3 a.m. and keeping me awake, and I say, hey, Daniel, what are you doing? And get out. And you say, well, that's my free speech rights. No. Free speech rights are only on your property.
Right. No, I agree. I don't think you should be able to make threats or, and obviously free speech doesn't mean you should be forced to give someone a microphone or listen to someone at 3 a.m.
Yeah, this guy, what's his name? The one that Trump is trying to get rid of his special access to secrets. Mm-hmm. I forget the guy's name. And he's saying, well, Trump is violating my free speech rights. No, he's not violating your free speech rights. On that issue, people having access to secret government codes, and they're no longer in the government, I don't see why any of them should have it, not just Trump's enemies. But, look, when I retire from Loyola, I just can't have this office or this desk, right? When you get fired or retire from a job, you just can't go back and have the key to the place as you had when you were an employee. So I forget the guy's name. It begins with a B. B as in boy. And he's saying, well, Trump took away my free speech rights because he's not giving me access to, secret government information. That's nonsense.
Right. No, I agree. But like, it's problematic. Like when people are trying to sue Alex Jones for denying Sandy Hook. Like that's kind of disgusting. But you have a right to be a Holocaust denier. You have a right to deny bad events. And
Yeah, look, in Europe and in Canada, if you deny the Holocaust or demean it, say, well, there weren't 6 million, it was only 6,000, or any way you besmirch the Holocaust view of 6 million Jews and I think 5 million others, gays and gypsies and blacks and other non-Aryans. If you diminish this severity of it, or if you call it into question, not if you say, look, it wasn't 6 million, it was only 5,998,000 or something like that, you're a scholar, that I think would be legal. But if you deny the whole thing, you can go to jail. Well, what's that? Yes, it's hateful to some people to deny it, but that's part of free speech. I mean, probably the best thing ever written on free speech was On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, which is a magnificent, magnificent essay. People should read that when they try to shut down other people.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's a problem. And I think the more, the problem with people who want to censor people is there's never a satiation point. So people will just find more things that they'll be upset over and more things to shut up about. It's sort of like that book, Envy, A Theory of Social Behavior, where the author talks about that people are envious. They're just going to find more things to be envious with. So you can't just remove the target of envy. I think the same thing. If people want to be offended, they'll be offended by anything. My sister told me she had a friend who gets offended by the word ketchup. So she doesn't say ketchup. She doesn't say ketchup when she's near her. I would say, give me a fucking break. But talking about the Holocaust, not only do I agree with Woody Allen. No, not only do I think we've lost 6 million, but the scary part is that records were made to be broken.
Well, Woody Allen's quite a funny guy. I just want to say one word about censorship. Only government can censor.
Right.
When I kicked you out of my house for reciting Shakespeare at 3 a.m, I didn't censor you because it was my private property. What Facebook did to Alex Jones was not censorship. It was nasty. It was rotten. It was hypocritical, but it wasn't censorship because they can't forbid Alex Jones from speaking, whereas the government could. So only the government can censor.
That's true. But I think you can make a case that it's somewhat fraudulent in the sense that they market themselves as being an open forum and being friends with freedom of speech. So I think it's hypocritical to say we believe in the marketplace of ideas, and then when someone's controversial, you ban him. Absolutely hypocritical, absolutely fraudulent, but not censorship. Right. Okay, I would agree with that. Do you think Trump's going to be impeached with all the news about Cohen and Manafort? Well, I really don't understand the left. Because if Trump is impeached, not only impeached, but found guilty, what's his name? Clinton was impeached, but was not kicked out of office. Who are they going to get? They're not going to get Hillary. They're going to get Mike Pence. Right. Who's worse? I'm sorry? Who's worse? Well, in some ways, I think he's worse, at least on foreign policy. I think he's much more of a warmonger. At least Donald Trump, God bless him, has got some anti-warmongering feelings. I haven't felt any of those from Mike Pence. And from the Democratic point of view, I don't see why they're so happy to get rid of him, because then they'll get Mike Pence. And with Mike Pence, if Mike Pence did exactly what Trump did, all the wind would be taken out of their sails, because Mike Pence didn't go to bed with a prostitute or a pornographic actress. Mike Pence didn't do this when he was a landlord in New York City, or racism or whatever he was accused of. Mike Pence is a straight arrow, a clean cut type of person. With Mike Pence, they'd never in a million years be able to get rid of him, impeach him. And also, there might be one or two more Supreme Court nominations that the president will fill in this 4-year term. And if Mike Pence picks somebody, it's going to be very hard to resist what he says. So from the Democratic point of view, it seems to me that what you want is not getting rid of Donald Trump, but a weakened Donald Trump. Namely, keep him weak. Keep mentioning Russian collusion, keep after him, keep nipping at his heels, keep trying to prevent him from doing whatever he wants. Don't build the wall, whatever.
keep them weak. My understanding of the way the lioness trains her cubs is what the lioness does is she doesn't kill the zebra and give the zebra to the cubs. What she does is gives the zebra a big smack and weakens the zebra, and then tells the cubs to go chase the weakened zebra, and the cubs catch the zebra, and in that way they get trained to get the zebra. Well, right now, Donald Trump is a weakened zebra, so to speak, and you'd think that the lion cub, the lioness, in this case the Democratic Party, would want a weakened zebra rather than getting rid of that zebra and getting Mike Pence, who's a healthy zebra, able to outrun the cubs, if my analogy holds true. So it's a little strange to me that maybe they talk a good impeachment, but maybe they don't really want to do it. I'm not sure. They're not stupid. They're just evil, as are the Republicans also.
Right.
I'm a libertarian. I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat, but they're not stupid. They've got smart people. Krugman is a smart person. He's not a dummy. Even though he's a little weak on economics, but you can't have everything.
Right. I mean, I think it's an obsession with the surface of things. I think it's you can't insult Muslims, you can just bomb them. So I think that's their view, right? So they want someone who's proper, who's polite, and even though he'll do horrible things, that's totally fine.
Well, that would be Pence.
Right. I mean, Obama, when he was in office, blew up how many Muslims, attacked how many people? But just for saying things, now people are going to go crazy. And, of course, Trump's bombed, too. He's no peacenik. But people don't really care about that. It's sort of like, the Nazis. They always say, God bless you. They were always polite. And that's, I think, what people care about. Because I think, I don't know, maybe Trump's making – this is the one thing I like about Trump is that he's making a mockery of the presidency. Right? that no one that sometimes when I post offensive things on Facebook, people say to me, well, how are you gonna get a job? And I'm like, that's true, I guess I could just be president only. But because now no one looks up to the presidency, and I think that's good. I think he's tarnishing that.
Absolutely. That's one of the benefits of Donald Trump. So,
but yeah, I mean look, so I don't think he's probably going to get impeached because that would not benefit the Democrats, probably.
Yeah, that would be my view. They talk a good impeachment, but I think when push comes to shove, they're not going to do it because they want a weakened Republican. They don't want a strong one, and Pence will be a strong one. Yeah.
Although this whole Russian collusion thing it makes my brain melt because, first of all, what's the complaint exactly? How dare Russia meddle in our elections by showing how we meddled in our elections?
I mean, the U.S. meddles in everyone else's elections. What?
That's true.
Only we can meddle in their elections. No one can meddle in our elections. What's that? That's a little hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's true. It's hypocritical. And also, what did Russia reveal? That they revealed how the media is interfering in our elections. So all they revealed is how the United States government is intervening. So it's a ridiculous complaint.
Yay, Russia.
Yay, Russia. But, yeah. So, but, I mean, now that Trump's been in office for a year and a half, are you still a libertarian for Trump?
Well, I wrote an article in the New York Times attacking Trump for his, tariff policies. Mm-hmm. And I've just written another one attacking him for his coal, fuel coal policies. He's trying to prop up coal. And I think that the proper view on fuel is the government doesn't put its thumb on the scale, that all the, coal and natural gas and nuclear power and windmills and solar and everything else just compete with each other on an equal basis. Now, it's true there's some externalities. Coal creates pollution. I'm a big fan of Murray Rothbard's essay on air pollution, where you sue the people. But, I'm looking at it from a mainstream point of view. Okay, there are certain externalities, negative externalities of coal. So you have to deal with them, but you don't want to change anything else. You don't want to push coal. You just want to make sure that coal isn't treated unfairly. By the way, windmills also have negative externalities. They kill birds sometimes, and birds are good, I guess. So if you incorporate that, um, my question is, or my criticism of Trump is that he's not taking that into account. He's just sort of pushing coal, because where is coal mined? In West Virginia and Pennsylvania and places that flyover country. You don't have much coal mining in California or Massachusetts. So he's supporting coal, not because there's a case for supporting coal, but because his supporters support coal, which is very similar to what happened with the whole tariff business. And then the tariffs boomeranged against the farmers, and farmers in flyover country vote for him. So first he has tariffs on aluminum and steel, and then the price of aluminum and steel rise, and then it hurts farmers. And then what he does is he tries to bribe the farmers. Well, Mises wrote about this a little bit. What Mises said is every time you interfere with the economy, with the free economy, you create problems. And then you try to fix the problems with another intervention into the economy, and you keep going, and eventually you have socialism. Well, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump on his economic policy. I still think he'd have been better than Hillary, but that doesn't stop me from criticizing when he's wrong.
Yeah, talking about that, it seems like Mises was wrong empirically, though, right? Because most economies are not pure socialism or pure capitalism. Most economies are in that unstable middle state. So it seems like Mises was wrong about that, this is not sustainable, because it seems like most countries are at that unsustainable point.
Well, I think it depends upon how you interpret him. And you've got an unsympathetic interpretation that he's saying, well, it'll inevitably and quickly end up there. If you interpret him a little bit more sympathetically, you might say, well, there's always that danger. And I think we can agree that, yes, there's that danger. If you keep doing this, you're going to end up in very bad places. Look at Venezuela, that they're further down the path. So I'd have to look at the exact wording of what Mises said in order to be fair. And I don't have I have Human Action in my office, but I don't know what page it's on. And, we'd have to do a little research to see if we were being fair to Mises or not.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing about externalities I find interesting, because I've always found, first of all, what's considered a positive or negative externality is the fact that we're breathing is a negative externality to a neo-Nazi. So, anytime something good happens to someone we hate, that's a negative externality. Anytime something bad happens to someone, good happens to someone we love, that's a positive externality. I used to say that people who are unattractive should be taxed, should be subsidized to wear clothes, because I don't want to see them naked. But people who are good looking should be taxed to wear clothes because I want to see them naked. So, what's considered an externality is totally subjective. Even pollution, right? Like, if someone's depressed and suicidal, maybe they want to breathe in secondhand smoke because they don't want to commit suicide because they're afraid of going to hell. And this gives them a way to maybe damage themselves without having to do it themselves.
You're such an extremist. I mean, I see your point, but there is something to be said for this. Although I don't see pollution as an externality. I see it as a trespass. And you might say, well, it's not really a trespass because the person who wants to commit suicide wants to have it. But I return again to Murray Rothbard's 1982 essay on air pollution. And I think that's the best thing ever written on environmental economics. And I recommend that to everyone. And Murray is, and look, Austrians are subjective. We have subjectivism. But when we get into what the law should be, we have to be objective.
Right.
If you got a factory building steel, manufacturing steel, and you have all sorts of sulfur coal into the air such that the air is black, well, that's a trespass. Even though some people might like to be trespassed upon, I think if I sue you for doing this, I would be in the right. Look, if I take my garbage and dump it on your lawn, it's possible that you're a masochist and you like people dumping garbage on your lawn. But but the law should be such that if I dump garbage on your lawn, you should be able to sue me for doing it, right, even though you might like it.
Right. No, I agree. I'm not saying pollution should be legal. I I'm just saying that what's considered a positive or negative externality itself.
Yes.
Right? I mean, the very act of purchasing something or not purchasing something is an externality, because if I purchase something, the demand goes up, and therefore that raises prices. And if I refrain from purchasing something, the demand goes down and prices get lower. So the very act of engaging in a marketplace creates externality. So I think they're unavoidable.
As an Austrian economist, I agree with you entirely. I would just say that this is part and parcel of market failure. The big market failures are what? Monopoly and externalities and unequal income distribution and I don't know, asymmetric information and 200 other market failures.
Right.
We Austrians don't believe in any market failure, so we're not. We don't believe in externalities, and your subjectivism, I think, was quite appropriate. Right. On the other hand, we do believe, as not as Austrians, but as libertarians, normative versus positive economics, that there is such a thing as a trespass.
Right.
And even though a masochist might like it, or a suicide person might like it, it's still trespass.
Okay. No, I don't disagree with you there, but there's an interesting article that I liked by one of my professors, Jeffrey Hummel, who said if we take welfare analysis seriously, yes, it's true that government gave us roads, but they also gave us the Holocaust. So in net, it's a very weak case, because you can't just look at the positive. I'm not a fan of police, and I would always say there's no such thing as a good cop, and although there are good ex-cops, and my uncle once there was an event where some cop stopped the school shooter by shooting at him or whatever. And my uncle said, "Do you still think there are no more good police?" And I'm like, I never said police are bad 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I just said there's no good police. If I have spent, 5 days a week murdering innocent people and 2 days a week saving lives, I'm still a bad police guy. It's just those 2 days a week I'm doing something good.
I certainly agree, but I would disagree with my friend Jeff Hummel when he said that the Holocaust is bad. I go along with that, but good. I have a book written, Privatization of Roads and Highways. Let me show it to you. Here it is, handy. And what I say here is that on the U.S. roads, some 40,000 people a year die. Now, it's going to take a while to get to 6 million, but 40,000 people dying on the roads is not a good thing. So it's not that the Holocaust is bad and roads are good. Government roads are bad. They kill, millions of people.
His only point is, even if you make the assumption that government roads are good.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm not making that assumption. And what I'm saying is that we should privatize roads. Well, look, on net balance, the roads killed 40,000 people, and they probably keep many more than 40,000 people alive, because if we didn't have them and we had only helicopters as a way of bringing groceries to the grocery store or picking up stuff, most of us would die. So I think on net balance, roads are a good thing. However, I think we'd be much better off if they were privatized, and then many fewer people would be killed, because we'd have competition in seeing which road owners could promulgate policies that would reduce deaths.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Like, some would require strict licensing, some would require none. Yeah. No, I mean it's good. But my only point was that, people who engage in welfare analysis in the mainstream, they just focus on like the good, like, well, government created the internet or whatever. Which, even if that's true, look at all the bad stuff they gave us. You can't just focus on half of the equation. I think that's his only point.
No, I agree with that.
Well, it's been great having you on. We should do this more often.
Okay, good. I'm delighted always to be with you. We have great discussions, and you're very provocative. So thanks for having me on your show again.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
It was nice having Walter Moderate Block.
Take care.
All right, take it easy.